Welcome to In Her Words, Working Conversations by Women. I'm your host, Thando Mazibuko. Today, we're talking about a moment many women know well. The first promotion, that new title, the sudden shift from doing the work to leading the people. It's exciting, it's terrifying, and it's rarely comes with a manual. Our guest is leadership coach Tess, whose award-winning book, Walking the Leadership Ledge, is a compassionate, practical guide for new leaders who want to thrive, not just survive. With humor, wisdom, and 25 years of experience, Tess helps us navigate the messy middle, have the hard conversations, and build teams that truly align. If you've ever felt underprepared, overwhelmed, or unsure whether you're doing leadership right, this conversation is for you. Tess, welcome to In Her Words, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Thando. I'm really excited to be here, and I was thrilled to learn more about you and your own journey in this world. And so, I'm looking forward to getting this conversation going.
Thank you so much. And thanks for the questions earlier on. We did have a chat. You, in your book, the title is The Leadership Ledge. That edge where new leaders, both opportunity and uncertain comes. What first inspired you to write this guide to practically help women, and not just women, but leaders in general?
Yes, it was a long and winding road, but for most of us who write a book, there is a book in us that needs to get out. And I knew there was always a book in me that needed to get out. I wasn't sure what it was going to be, but I have in my own life found myself in leadership positions, and certainly early on, where it was just like all of a sudden, I was a really good individual contributor, and all of a sudden I am in a leadership position, and it is such a profound shift. And so organizations put people into leadership or higher positions, management positions. And because they're really good at the job they do, and then they find themselves in this leadership position, and it's like the wheels start to fall off the bus, because it's a completely different set of competencies that you need in leadership that are different from what you needed as an individual contributor. But I kind of lost the question in there, but my own journey in terms of becoming a leader, and very unprepared for that, and making all kinds of mistakes along the way. And then I fell in love with all things leadership and management when my first career was in marketing and public relations, and I went out on my own. And this is a two-pronged answer. First of all, what I found when I was out on my own is that companies will spend a lot of money in promoting what they do and saying they do these things really, really well, but rarely do they prepare their people to actually deliver. Rarely do they train their people to actually deliver on what they say they do really well. So then they get frustrated because there may be this surge of interest in their products or what they're doing, and then things fall off because people figure out, they're not really following through on what they say they do so well. So that was one piece of it. So there was this frustration there, and so I started to move into corporate training to help organizations train their people to deliver on what it is they say they do so well. And then, but the other piece of that is that when I was in business for myself, I started working for a management consulting company, and I worked for this company for 13 years. And it was really at that place where I fell in love with all things leadership and management. And it was just like it was the epiphany that, the light came on, and it was this bridging my love of corporate training and my love of leadership development in helping organizations to develop their team members so that those individual team members can deliver on what the organization needs, and the leaders can create a culture in which those team members want to come to work. It's exciting to be there. They can connect to the mission, vision, purpose of the organization because they can see how their role fits into that. So that's sort of the background, and I went off probably on a couple of tangents there, so feel free to rein me in at any time. So
No, not a problem. You did touch on this while you were speaking about why you wrote the book. And one of the things you speak about is one of the big truths in your book, and that is companies aren't prepared to train leaders and just throw people into the deep end and expect them to lead. Why do you think that is such a common gap? And what is the big first step to bridging that problem?
Well, it is, I think there is just really a lack of awareness. And here's the other thing too. So many of those in leadership today were indeed just tossed into leadership. And so there kind of becomes this mentality around, well, I had to figure it out. And so they'll figure it out. But it's like when you think about the cost of not preparing folks to lead in an organization, to step into management. Well, first of all, 80% of an organization's strategy gets done at the front line. And yet the frontline leaders are rarely given any training. And just fundamental things like, how do I set clear expectations? Because clear expectations go well beyond a job description. And I do a lot of work with smaller organizations. And oftentimes smaller organizations can be of the mindset, well, everybody just does what needs to get done. Well, here's the thing. If everybody's doing everything, nobody's accountable for anything. And so you have all of this. You have lost revenue. You have clients that you're losing. You have turnover on the team because there is this lack of what's expected of me. And then they're also not equipped to have challenging conversations. They have they don't have clearly articulated expectations. They struggle to have challenging conversations. They're not creating a culture in which people can connect to our why as an organization. They can't connect their why to the organization's why. And so there's all this residual impact that the bottom line is going to show the impact, but the organization may struggle to connect the dots to, oh, you know what? We're not setting up our people for success. So this then is impacting the success of the organization.
That's so true. And how do you now come in to a company, and what do you do with organization and leaders?
So there are a couple of things, and probably one of the most, there are a couple, so first of all, how is an organization onboarding their team members? How are they bringing new team members into an organization? And if you're a leader, how are you integrating your team members into your team? So that would be one of the key steps in terms of building the team that is the organization, and the intentionality around that. And that again goes to setting them up for success. So what does success look like for that new team member in the first 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, and really articulating that. And so you've got milestones along the way. You've got key training modules so that what does a team member need to be aware of in terms of the organization? What do they need to have some capability in terms of what they're doing on the job? And what do they need to have in terms of mastery to successfully excel in their position? So key things in terms of really intentionally thinking about how are we setting up our team members for success. That's one key piece of it. The other is aligning the team. So often in an organization, you have, my joke is that organizations will throw people together and expect them to be a team because, well, if you have been on a team, whether it's, the football team or the soccer team or the baseball team or the swim team, whatever, if you have cheered for a team, be that the World Cup or the Super Bowl or whatever that is, if you can spell the word team, there's this assumption that you should be able to work effectively on a team. When in fact, again, it is a whole level of complexity, and you've got all of these layers with the individuals, their own goals, their own identities, their own ways of communicating, their own expectations around trust and respect, and the team. And I think the numbers are between, the last I saw, it's a big range, but between 60 and 80% of teams fail in achieving their objective. And that's massive. Okay, so there's a reason for that. And I believe strongly that it's because the team has not been aligned. And so in aligning the team, what we do is we talk about what does this team need to function effectively to achieve what it is we're here to achieve. So there's a whole series of steps that we walk through in aligning the team. And essentially, every team wants 4 core things. They want communication, and they want trust, and they want accountability, and they want respect. But here's the thing. While they may say, yes, we want these things, and we're going to be trustworthy, and we're going to be accountable, unless they really talk about what does trustworthy look like to you versus what does it look like to me? What does it look like in action if I'm accountable and you're accountable? So while we all love those big buckets of accountability, trust, communication, and respect, unless we're articulating what that looks like in action and what it means to you versus what it looks like to me, then we're going to be most likely talking past each other, and we haven't articulated those expectations clearly with each other. So then we're going to get frustrated. Thando might be saying, well, Tess is not trustworthy because I can't count on her to respond to my emails in a timely fashion. And somebody else might be saying, well, this person, they were disrespectful to me because they talked over me in a meeting and they didn't let me articulate what my concern was. So you really have to dig into how is the team going to work effectively? What does it look like in action? And it's beyond the Tuckman model, which is the forming, storming, norming, and performing. That's part of it. But we really dig into how are you going to show up for each other on that team, and what does dysfunction look like? Because we all, when we get stressed and we get triggered and, we're frustrated, dysfunction shows up. And each one of us has our moments where we don't bring our best selves to the table. And so what's the team going to see, when I'm bringing dysfunction to that? And how can the team help me in that moment to get through the dysfunction, nudge me past it, acknowledge it, and so that I own it. I have to own my behavior and what I'm bringing to the team. And then also, what am I doing because I own my behavior and I own my leadership role on this team? Even if I'm a team member, I am also a leader in certain moments on that team. What am I working toward so that I can, in those moments when I'm not my best self, when I am stressed, and what am I working on intentionally to grow and develop as a member of this team? Long answer to your question. What additional questions do you have?
No, you did touch on the team alignment impact that I was going to ask you, but you also coined the term delegate, which is delegating through engagement for leaders who struggle to let things go. How do you help them reframe delegation as growth for themselves and their teams?
Yes. Well, as a leader, and I'll go back to the individual contributor. So the individual contributor, they're getting stuff done. They're owning the work, and they're the ones who are producing the results. And then they find themselves in a management or leadership or higher position, and they have to get work done through others. They have to scale their capacity. So I use an example in the book of a woman who works on the accounting team. And she's a phenomenal member of that team. And then she's promoted into leadership. And all of a sudden, she is in over her head because, in her mind, leadership is just about, I'm going to tell people what to do. They're going to do things my way, and then things will be done right. And all of a sudden, she's in over her head because she's discovering that it is so much more than that. And so, in that, she can't hold on to everything. So she has to let go of some things. And and there's so much fear around letting go. First of all, because we like things done as leaders, we like things done a certain way. We can be very attached to that way of doing things. And then that's one fear, is that they're not going to do things the way I do them or the way I want them done. And then another fear is, well, if I'm handing off these things, what am I going to be doing? What does success look like for me? And so there's that insecurity, and the identity is attached to performing those tasks and doing those things. And yet, as the leader, as a manager, as someone in a higher level position, I'll go back to, you have to get work done through others. You have to scale your capacity so that now you are creating greater impact. And that means letting go of some things. So from a very fundamental standpoint, there's the first checking in with, all right, what are the things that only I can do in this position? And so we do an inventory, if you will. It's like taking a few days and just you write down everything that you're doing, and everything from having meetings and developing strategy to delivering reports, whatever that is, to cleaning the refrigerator, so on and so forth. And you write down everything that you do, and you look at that list and you say, okay, what are the things that only I can do? And then you probably find that list is pretty narrow. And then you start looking at, well, what are maybe 3 things that I could let go of? Because we want to start small, because it can be, very, very frightening. And what are maybe 3 things that I could hand off to a couple of members of my team that will. This is where the engagement comes in, because this is where we start looking at our team members and saying, how can I develop? How can I help Betsy grow? How can I help Sam grow? And what are some things that I'm doing now that I really shouldn't be doing? That if I help them to take on these responsibilities, first of all, it raises their capacity, and most good team members, they want to grow, they want to develop, they want to engage in more of the high impact work. And so as a leader, you're looking at, how am I developing my team members? Because if I can scale their capacity, if I can grow their capacity, I'm growing the capacity of our department. And I, as a leader, can focus more on, what are we as an organization doing strategically, and how am I connecting that to the work of my team and equipping them so that all boats rise, that the entire department rises. But I have to first begin to let go. And that is an emotional process that requires, introspection and really, really looking at, also, what are the things that I should be doing in my position that I'm not doing, because I like doing these other things that I was doing before, but they're not necessarily helping the department or my team members to grow. And so it really does require that willingness to turn the mirror on ourselves and consider, what can I let go of? What will I let go of?
That is true. We sometimes as leaders don't know when to let go. We want to do everything and we think our way is best, which is not always true, because we're needed to go to the next level. You need to let go of other things. What does power in progress mean to you? And how do you see women embodying that as they walk through leadership one step at a time?
Yes. Oh, I love that question. Power and progress. Power to me is curiosity. And that, I think, is the most powerful tool that any leader, and especially women, can lean into. And it is that willingness to ask questions, and be curious about what is the underlying motivation here? What is the underlying goal? What are we really here to achieve? What's gonna help you to bring the best of you to the table as we are together trying to work toward achieving this particular goal? And progress is that in the midst of all of the noise around us, we are firmly grounded in our values. What are my values? How am I bringing those to the table? And that also intertwines with power, because when we are firmly grounded in our values and what is important to us and what we will not compromise, then that enables us to make progress, and it enables us to bring, I believe, our true power, our true ninja skills to the table.
Thank you for that. That is such a powerful answer to progress in power. It's Women's History Month right now, and who are some of the women that have, inspired you or created an impact in your own journey?
Mm-hmm. There's so many. The Brene Brown, of course, I've followed her for many years, and her powerful trajectory and all that she stands for. Liz Wiseman is the author of the book Multipliers, and I read her book many, many years ago, and that was a profound and powerful book, and it just talked about how no matter where you sit in an organization, you can be either a multiplier or a diminisher. And what do you choose to be in your role, whatever that role may be? Ruth Bader Ginsburg, of course, she was on the Supreme Court. She passed away in 2020, and a powerful advocate for, in any room, women need to be there and have a voice. So those, I would say, would be the big three who come to mind. Michelle Obama would be another one, and the advocacy, the work that she has done over the years as well.
Thank you for that. For answering that question. You're an author through and through, because those are powerful women who have written books like yourself. And I think for my final question, because you've answered so much, and the work that you do, and you speak about in your book, you also speak about communication styles and the importance of leaders knowing their team's communication styles. You did touch on the team alignment pact and so much more of it. And your book is such a practical guide to leadership. And I think it's such a great book for anyone, a young person who's starting out in their career, to start reading such books, and such a tool to have it is very important. And I had the pleasure to I'm still reading it, obviously. But my final questions to you is, if you could leave our listeners or people watching with any one affirmation, question, or invitation to return to their teams this week, what would it be?
It honestly would be curiosity. And it is that willingness to, you don't have to have, and you can't have all the answers. And so how can you stand with confidence and curiosity in the words, I don't know. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. And giving yourself permission to say, I don't know. What do you think? What would make this initiative wildly successful? If we look back on this, what we're doing today, and say, wow, we really missed the boat on this. What will we wish that we had talked about today? What will we wish that we had explored today? What questions will we wish that we had put on the table to better understand? Really, strongly, firmly believe that if we can lean into curiosity, welcome the words, I don't know, but I'll find out, then we can create more effective, more collaborative, and more impactful teams.
Tess, can you please tell us where our viewers can find you?
Sure. So my last name is Fyalka, Tess Fyalka, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I welcome any and all connections. And then you can also find my book at walkingtheleadershipledge.com. You can also connect with me on my website, which is anglecoaching.com. So I have my business website, and that's anglecoaching.com, or my book website, walkingtheleadershipledge.com.
Thank you for sharing again. And I will put everything in the description box with all the websites.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tess, for your time today. And thank you for sharing your journey and the work that you do, which is such important work for big organizations and for the individual person. And thank you for sharing it with us in this book from where, because you can't come everywhere in the world. So you get to share it with us in this book.
Yes, it has been my pleasure. Thank you so much for letting me talk about my passion.
And you're so passionate about it. And thank you for being passionate about leadership.